Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. I am your host, Ryan Hallam, and it is the final show of 2020. So we bring out the big guns, and my co-host, Adam Ronis. Adam, what's going on, buddy? We got 1 week left in the NFL regular season, and it is setting up to be quite interesting.
Yeah, we know that's always the case with Week 17. Certain teams have nothing to play for. They're going to sit injured guys. You have the situation with Kansas City where they've locked up the 1 seed. They're going to sit guys. And we know people still have Week 17 championships. I don't know about you, but I have none.
No.
I see people arguing for it, but my argument against it is, if you drafted anyone from Kansas City this year, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, you obviously did a good job, and they were key pieces of your fantasy team. And for you to not have them in Week 17 just because they're resting, this is not an injury situation. I just think it's unfair. I mean, there's someone who could have drafted Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce with their first 2 picks. And obviously, they probably went far if they did well with the rest of the team. And now you're just taking them out. It's not an injury situation. So that's my argument. You could say there's variance in Week 15, Week 16, sure. But in Week 17, pretty much at least a couple of teams are going to clinch and rest players. I mean, Pittsburgh's doing it. We don't know who besides Ben Roethlisberger. And Buffalo might do it as well. So, that just creates an imbalance for me. So, even in the other fantasy sports, fantasy basketball, we do head-to-head. I cut out the last 2 weeks because the same thing happens in NBA. So, I've always said, play what you think is fun. If people have a league full of 12 people that love Week 17, hey, do it, but not for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just, like you said, it's not an injury situation. It's just they're just not playing. And it's not like it's your wide receiver 3 and your backup tight end. I mean, these were the cornerstones of your team. And I thought maybe this year with just the 1 bye that maybe it would be less of a factor this year, but it doesn't appear to be. I know the NFC, we have, the home field is still up for grabs, but the AFC, the top 3 seeds are not that, 2 and 3 aren't set, but neither one seems to care about 2 or 3, at least as of now. And it's just, and also I think to Week 17, I think the motivation factor comes into it with the teams at the bottom. I think Week 16, Week 15, Jacksonville's at least putting a somewhat of an effort forth. Week 17, I think the Lions are just waiting for all zeros, and I think they're going to put even less effort forth than they have in the previous couple weeks.
Yeah, it's always tough to tell. I mean, it is a divisional game. It's Minnesota. But, yeah, Detroit's performance last week was one of the worst I've ever seen defensively. It really was. I could not believe the chunks of yardage that they were giving up to Tampa Bay. I mean, it was just absolutely pathetic, man. So, and the other factor, too, that I think maybe people gloss over is some of these guys could be pulled early. Like, say Buffalo says, all right, we'll start Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. They could pull him after 1 quarter. They could pull him after 2 quarters. Maybe even Tampa Bay. I mean, I know Bruce Arians has said, look, we want to get the 5 seed because obviously it's desirable on paper, at least, because you get to face the NFC East champion, who clearly is going to be the inferior team, although it's 2020. You never know. Maybe that team gets hot. Hoping it's the Cowboys. Nah.
We're going to talk about that in just a second.
But, that's the other thing, too. Some guys could get pulled early. So there's just a lot of circumstances that go into making this a very hectic week.
Yeah, and I think that is going to happen on a lot of teams. I kind of feel like Buffalo is going to play their starters. Maybe we get a half, but I have a feeling they're going to pull Tampa Bay. I agree. If they get up on Atlanta, I think I think the Packers have a chance if they have a decent lead against the Bears. You might not see Aaron Rodgers in the 4th quarter or something along those lines.
That one I disagree with. Aaron Rodgers is chasing MVP, man, and this guy wants it. Here's the other thing too. The other thing to look out for this week is milestones. Now, this one's kind of lofty, but Aaron Rodgers needs 6 touchdowns for 50. So don't start your Green Bay running backs. They ain't getting the ball. And Devontae Adams needs 3 touchdowns for 20.
20, yeah.
Now,
what a season.
That could happen. And Mike Evans, what does he need? 40 yards, I think, for 1,000. And he would have 7 straight years of 1,000 yards to open his career. So that one's quick. He can get that. But that's the other thing, milestones and – sometimes we don't know what the bonuses are, the incentives, but Aaron Rodgers, man, that dude wants the MVP, man. I mean, I've said it all year. You could see how many times he was throwing at the 1-yard line. He's piling up the stats, man. And, I am kind of a bitter Aaron Jones owner in one league that I went against Adams and Rodgers last week in the championship. I had Aaron Jones. So I was kind of screwed right from the beginning of that game.
So Tampa Bay and Atlanta, that's one. Like you said, there's obviously Atlanta has really nothing to play for. Their defense has been slightly better over the last month, but I think Tom Brady, I think is as the Patriots have torpedoed downwards, I think Tom Brady is really enjoying this season in Tampa. So I think even if he doesn't play the full game, I think we're going to see him try to come out like last week. And really go aerial and even rack up a pretty decent game against the Falcons, even if he doesn't play all 4 quarters.
Yeah, it's hard not to see him as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy this week. Again, there is the risk they pull him early. But, hey, if he does what he did last week, I mean, that was crazy. I don't ever recall a quarterback being pulled like one drive into the third quarter and put him, 337 and 4 touchdowns. Yeah. So, yeah, Mike Evans, definitely a good play. I mean, scored a ton of, 13 touchdowns in 15 games. Unbelievable. I was not very high on Evans this year. I mean, the yards are not there. It's a lot of touchdown base, but you'll take it. Godwin is a good play as well. And the thing about Tampa is they just have so many options and they spread it around. Like you don't know who the big guy is on a given week.
Yeah, and I think the thing that at least why I was down on Evans and maybe you were as well. So I thought Brady, wasn't going to throw as many deep balls. I never expected Evans to have 10 touchdowns from inside the 5. So I think that was why, personally, I wasn't so much on him, and this has been, not what I expected.
Yeah, plus they had Godwin and Gronk, and then obviously Antonio Brown came in. We didn't know that at the time, but yeah, I just was like, I don't know if there's going to be enough here because I didn't expect Brady to be like Winston and as aggressive. But, like you said, a lot of short touchdowns. Evans is a big target, and Godwin's been banged up in and out of lineup, and it's worked out for those that had Evans.
The Atlanta side, the only guy I really talk about is Calvin Ridley. Absolutely torched the Bucs a couple weeks ago. I'm expecting another big game from him.
Yeah, one of the props I had on Wager Alarm before the year was Calvin Ridley over 1,099 yards. I think that was pretty easy.
Yeah.
We saw what he did his first couple of years, knew he was going to see an expanded role and become a primary focus in the pass game. And, the absence of Julio Jones has not hurt him. Sometimes people say, oh, can he be the number one? He's been getting the targets and come through. So, yeah, he's pretty much the only guy you love on Atlanta this week.
And I think the torch is kind of, even for next year, I think the torch has officially been passed as Ridley 1 and Julio 2. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I said before this year that Julio Jones is going to fall off a cliff quickly because it happens with receivers his size, his age. Now, I didn't say it would be this year. I still had him ranked high, took him in one league. But he's a guy that I think is going to fall off quickly, like Andre Johnson. Kind of, those 6'3", 220 pound. And we've seen Julio hasn't missed many games before this year, but he's always banged up, constantly leaving the field. So, yeah, Julio Jones is a guy that definitely concerned about for next year.
All right, let's move on to some games that actually have some playoff, and let's go right to your game. Cowboys and Giants. The Giants' offense has just been god-awful over the past month. I think the 13 they scored last week was the most in 2 or 3 weeks. While the Cowboys, man, Andy Dalton all of a sudden looks like he's got it figured out. Zeke Elliott, had a resurgence after I was questioning his motivation for a couple weeks. And Michael Gallup is back from the dead. I think the Dallas is really dangerous as they're getting hot at the right time.
They are, but this is a tougher matchup. I mean, the Giants have been good defensively. They've given up the 5th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. So, they held Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson down to each 1 passing touchdown. I know Wilson has struggled down the stretch. Lamar Jackson had under 200 passing yards. I know he's not much of a passer anyway, and 2 touchdowns. And it's just they took advantage of a Philly defense that was beat up. They had some real big injuries in the secondary, and they just whoever wasn't on Slay, they just attacked them. And it's going to be a little bit tougher here against the Giants. So I don't really love Dalton. I think I have him right around 15. I mean, look, Zeke is still, to me, an RB2. I know he looked better last week, but again, Giants have been pretty good. And the receivers, I think you could use Cooper, Lamb, and even Gallup. You'd expect Bradbury to be on Cooper, but maybe they mix it up or move Cooper around the formation. So I think you could use the Cowboys receivers, but I don't think this is going to be easy at all.
Oh, no.
And it's Dallas is only favored by 2. It's a rivalry game as well. And Giants have the opportunity to win division as well. If the Giants win and Washington loses, the Giants win the division.
And I said this Tuesday when I was on this with Jen. I hate to say this, but your team has found creative ways to cough up games they've needed to win over the past couple of years as well.
I'm well aware of that, and Mike McCarthy has not changed things for the better. So uh, I am. This is the most excited I've been about a game probably since Dak Prescott was in at quarterback, because I really thought like just lose games, get a draft pick. But now they're past that. Forget the draft pick. You're here. Might as well win, and then maybe get embarrassed in the first round. But hey, I'll be rooting for them on Sunday with my new CeeDee Lamb jersey that I was just got for Christmas.
Nice, and that's the guy I like the most of the three receivers this week. I do think Bradbury will be on Cooper. Gallup has been good the last couple of weeks, but I think that Lamb can make the Giants vulnerable out of the slot, and he's just really exciting. He's a guy who can take any real short pass a long way. So of the three, he's the one I'm the most excited about this week.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I think they will move Cooper around, but Lamb certainly looks like he has the best matchup. Dalton has been spreading the targets around pretty evenly. Gallup was the guy that didn't see as much with Dak, but Dalton has found him. And sucks because I was very high on Gallup before the year, and as the third guy in that group taken off the board, best value. And who knows what would have happened with Dak.
Jets and Patriots, there's just really nothing to talk about here.
No,
really at all.
There's nothing you can play in this game. Maybe Crowder, but yeah, I mean, you don't want the running back. Like, this is an ugly, ugly game. I mean, we haven't liked anyone on New England for weeks, right? I mean, Cam Newton just fell off my rankings, just like buried. The running back for New England is usually ranked 28 to 34. I mean, Jacoby Myers is in the 40 to 50 range. There's no one here that's desirable.
Now, what about Ty Johnson? Because the Patriots have been completely awful against the run. P. Ryan's out, Gore's out. I mean, obviously, when you're playing, with a lot of confidence, but a dart throw in DFS, I think the way the Patriots go, the run, and the one game he was given 20 carries, Ty Johnson looked pretty good.
Yeah, and, no Gore, no P. Ryan, so you would think. I mean, they still have Adams there. But, yeah, I mean, especially if you're playing season long and you lost Alvin Cook and you lost Robinson – he could be out there. Certainly not the worst option. I think I have him ranked around 30 at running back right now. Although those rankings will change. So, it's already been a nightmare putting Xing guys out, putting guys in. So just make sure you guys check back Sunday morning when we have all the latest news. But I'll be updating them over the next couple days.
Vikings and Lions, we talked a little bit about the Lions secondary already. So Jefferson and Thielen, it's, all arrows pointing up for those two, especially without Dalvin Cook.
Oh, yeah, you got to love the Vikings and DFS. Even Kirk Cousins. I'm assuming Madison is going to be the guy. They might mix in Amir Abdullah, but yeah, Jefferson, Thielen, even Irv Smith. Irv Smith's become a red zone threat. So yeah, you got to love this game. Detroit, it looks like Stafford's going to be out. Again, they looked terrible last week, but Minnesota's defense isn't great. So DeAndre Swift probably, and I don't know about Hawkinson, man.
It's really been an inconsistent year for between him and Marvin Jones. Every time you start trusting Marvin Jones, he lays an egg. I'd probably, even with the Vikings secondary not being great, I'd be kind of hard pressed to play Lions with Chase Daniel or David Blau. I mean, they were both just god awful last week too. Stafford is so beat up. Even if he does play, I don't know how effective he can be or if he can stay in the game. So I think just based on the horrible quarterback play, I would probably stay away from the Lions altogether.
Yeah, just Swift for me, probably.
Yeah. Steelers and Browns. Browns going to get their wide receivers back. Rashard Higgins, the whole group, Landry, Peoples-Jones, Kadero Hodge, all off the COVID list as expected. Steelers, like you said, definitely sitting Big Ben, figuring there's going to be others or maybe going to get pulled during the game. Still, I kind of feel like the Browns, kind of lost their mojo a little bit last week with that loss to the Jets. I think the Steelers not playing their guys kind of give them a little bit of an edge, but I think I'm more on a Chubb bandwagon and maybe Landry than any of the fringe guys there.
Yeah, for sure. Chubb, Landry, maybe even Rashard Higgins. The Browns were in a tough spot last week where all that COVID came down at the last minute, and I think it did affect them. A couple linemen were out as well, and they did have I think another shutdown today with COVID as well. Yeah. So just beware. I mean, I was saying, I think last week, talking to Bender, like this would be the Browns' luck that they just are like a lock for the playoff spot, and then something happens COVID comes, they lose last week to the Jets, and then imagine they're 10-point favorites. Imagine losing this game and then they don't make the playoffs. That would be like the epitome of the Cleveland Browns. Just when we think they're done being the Browns and then they don't make the playoffs with the year they had, oh man, that would be brutal. But the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of times people gravitate towards the team needing the game. It doesn't always work, man. Some of these times, these teams come to play. They have nothing to lose, and then the pressure starts to mount on the teams that need the game. So I was looking at, I think the record is like 5 games over 500 for the teams that really need to win over the last, I forgot, I got to find the number. I saw it, but it's not like everyone's assumption is, oh, Browns need the game, I'm taking them. It doesn't always work that way, man. So be careful.
It's also a divisional game,
yes.
And I don't think Mike Tomlin is not going to lose any sleep if he knocks the Browns out of the playoffs either. I think the Steelers, while they're not playing Ben, I think they certainly want to win the game, and Mason Rudolph is bad, but he's not completely awful. I mean, he had, I don't think he's a starting NFL quarterback, but with a full week of practice, knowing he's going to be the starter, I think he could be okay. I don't think he takes, necessarily Deontay Johnson out of potential usage. I can't run the ball really, but I don't think the Steelers aren't just going to roll over.
No, they won't. Again, it depends who's going to play because you got to remember the Steelers really haven't had a bye. They were off, I think, in week 4 due to COVID.
Yeah, they did.
So and then they had the whole situation with Baltimore. Yeah, we're going to play Thanksgiving. Now we're playing Sunday. Now it's Monday. Now it's Tuesday. So they've had a lot to deal with. Not making excuses for them because I don't like them. So I'd like to see them lose. But they have had a lot to deal with. So I could see them sitting a lot of players.
Ravens and Bengals. Brandon Allen for the Super Bowl, baby. 370 yards last week against the Houston. I think it might be a little bit tougher this week against Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't think Baltimore's defense is as good as it was, and this is a divisional game. But man, the one thing about the Ravens, even this year, especially the last month, when they play inferior opponents, they beat up on them. And I know the Giants had a chance to come back last week and potentially cover the spread, but they didn't. So you got to like the Ravens here. I haven't really heard any update on J.K. Dobbins. He was dealing with a chest injury, so that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, if he plays, you like him. You can mix in Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown. Look, he's been better lately. Not a huge game last week. I had him in championship week, only gave me 12, but he got the touchdown. And Lamar's obviously a great play.
I believe William Jackson is going to miss the game for the Bengals, which will help Hollywood as he's their one decent corner. I think the Bengals' little run here of beating the Steelers and beating the Texans is going to come to a crashing halt this week.
Give them credit, though. They have played pretty hard the last 2 weeks, especially that Pittsburgh game. I mean, they came to play. They were inspired and fired up. And Tyler Boyd could be back this week, too.
Yeah, they just smashed the Steelers in the mouth, and the Steelers never recovered from early physical play. You could see it right off the bat.
Divisional game, man. All the time I say it. These teams know each other well, and the Bengals were just pumped up to knock them off, and it worked.
Yep. Dolphins at the Bills. This one's going to come down to motivation for the Bills. No quarterback controversy this week in Miami. Ryan Fitzpatrick's got the COVID, so he is out of the game. So it's 60 minutes of applauding offense for the Dolphins, who have looked very ineffective with Tua under center. So I think this bumps Myles Gaskin up a couple, ranking spots with Tua out there.
Yeah, he's definitely an RB1 this week, even with Fitzpatrick. I mean, he looked great last week. Anyone who took the chance and said, hey, I'm going to play in my championship week, you were rewarded in a big way. I mean, he just looked great. I mean, Ahmed actually was out there to start, and then Gaskin came in and just ran away with it. So he's a great play. And the only other guy from Miami I'd probably look at is Gesicki. Good matchup here. Bills struggle against tight ends.
Yes, big time.
Devontae Parker we'll see, but again, with Tua there, I don't feel good. I like what Miami's doing. I like Flores. I think they head in the right direction. I would like to see them miss the playoffs. They're boring with Tua at quarterback. I'd rather see the Colts get it. I know Rivers still throwing punts around and everything with his arm, but I'd rather see them get in than Miami. If you're talking about quality of watching.
Yeah. All right, Bills, again, we don't know who's playing, so we'll just move on from that one. The Seahawks at the 49ers. San Francisco's – it's Jeff Wilson, and to me there's nothing else. No Debo, no Ayuk. Kittle. What do you think about Kittle?
You're playing him. I thought he looked pretty good. I think he did drop one pass, right? Late in the game, I think. But yeah, if he's going to be out there, even if he's limited snaps, we know how bad tight end is. You play him 3 for 70 last week, not bad. Wilson's looked really good. Again, divisional game. The one thing about San Francisco, I will say this. I know you're a 49ers fan. I think they're one of the best coached teams in the NFL.
Absolutely.
With what they've done this year, all the injuries, still played hard down the stretch. There was a while when they started to get healthy. I'm like, they could make a run. Didn't happen. They've just had so many injuries. Seattle's just not playing well at all, man. I mean, Russell Wilson's had one good game recently, and it was against the Jets. That's it. This offense has turned so conservative. You're playing DK Metcalf. Look, Lockett's not even a lock. I started to look at his numbers and discuss this on Alarm After Hours with Justin Benjamin. Basically, his production has come in 3 games this year. Yeah. If you go look at what he's done since that 3-touchdown, 200-yard game, he's done nothing. And I think he's ranked 15th or 16th at wide receiver in points per game. And this is what I hate about, you can always use stats and numbers to support your argument. So people next year, and I love Tyler Lockett. I do. I was high on him this year. I didn't get him anywhere. I guess it turned out to be okay. I think I got him in best ball. But people are going to say, oh, well, Lockett was a wide receiver too last year. Well, how are the games distributed, man?
Right.
I mean, and he did this last year too, although last year he got hurt, played through it, was sick also. But, man, this is 2 years in a row Russell Wilson has faded down the stretch. And I think it's partly offensive philosophy as they don't let Russ cook. They took him out the damn kitchen, man. He ain't cooking. Yeah. So
he was on an incredible pace to start the year. And I don't know what the hell they're doing.
I don't understand it at all. I mean, I know the defense improved, but I want the ball in the best player's hands, and that's what Kansas City does with Mahomes. I mean, even the one thing I like about them too is it'll be a 3rd down late in the game. They're not going to run. Mahomes is going to throw to Kelce, get the 1st down, put the game away. So many teams run in that situation. So, yeah, Seattle, it's Metcalf. I mean, you're going to use Carson, although he's kind of more an RB2 at this point. And Wilson is borderline a QB1. I mean, I had the discussion last week. I think I had Wilson ranked at 12, and actually I had him ranked outside QB1. I had Baker ahead of him, but once Baker lost all the receivers, I had to bump Baker down.
Yeah, absolutely. Cardinals and Rams.
What a mess.
The Rams with John Wolford at quarterback. That just wipes out the entire team. Cardinals, looks like Kyler Murray's going to be good to go. The Rams still have one of the better defenses in football. They still have Aaron Donald. They still have Jalen Ramsey. Darius Williams has turned into one of the better young corners in the game. But at the same time, Hopkins had a pretty good game the first time against Ramsey. So, and Murray seems to, although this new injury, he was looking good before this. What do you think on the Cardinals side?
The total's 40.5, man. I mean, that's just crazy. But yeah, look, you got Murray. You're pretty much playing him. He's a QB1. He's just not a lock as he was. Hopkins is going to be in, and then I guess. Drake's been so touchdown dependent. He's been a very frustrating player this year. I had him in a few leagues, and it just sucked. Last week he did nothing, man, against the Niners. 45 yards and 18 carries, found the end zone. Did nothing against Philly. So the last time he faced the Rams, he had 10 carries, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Chase Edmonds still not – he didn't practice yesterday, right? I haven't seen anything today. I mean, obviously, if Edmonds is out, helps Drake a little bit, but still a low RB2.
Colts and Jags, this is kind of a yawn. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is the man here. And that might be it. Zach Pascal has had 3 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. Hilton is fading a little bit. And obviously, it's a great matchup. What do you think on the Colts?
Yeah, it's pretty much Jonathan Taylor, and everything else is risky. I guess Hilton if you're desperate at wide receiver, but even that last matchup against the Texans when everyone was on him, I'm like, he's going to disappoint. And he did. He had like a 30, 40-yard play late in that game to even get him to 70, 80 yards. So Rivers just spreads the ball around. I mean, look, it's a good matchup. They should be able to put up numbers, but hard to trust any of them.
This one should be fun, at least from a fantasy perspective. Titans and Texans, 2 terrible defenses. Obviously, the Titans have everything to play for. The Texans have nothing to play for. But I still think Deshaun Watson's going to come out firing, and I think it's going to be a lot of fireworks with him and Tannehill.
Yeah, I think he plays, although there's talk that maybe he doesn't. I would think that they let him play. But, yeah, this game, clearly you're going to see a ton of points. Totals 56. I think the Texans will play. They're going to be able to put up points. So Mike Watson, David Johnson again, probably no Duke Johnson. So yeah, he's going to get a good workload here, as we've seen the last 2 weeks. Brandon Cooks, Kiki Cutie. And then on the Tennessee side, we know Ryan Tannehill, top play this week. Derrick Henry needs, 243 yards, I think, for 2,000, right?
It's possible, 223. Man.
223. It's possible, man. You know they're going to feed him the rock this week. A.J. Brown, you go back to, Corey Davis. So, yeah, this is a game where pretty much you're starting all the significant players. And it would be surprising if we don't get a shootout here.
Yeah. On the flip side, a boring game of the Raiders and the Broncos. Not a lot of fantasy love here. Josh Jacobs. And what about Jerry Jeudy's? Had the 15 targets last week. He getting a little resurgence against a bad Raiders defense, or is that kind of a one-game blip?
No, I mean, his biggest problem has been drops this year, and there were also games that Drew Lock didn't look at him at all because Jeudy was getting open. In fact, he had a tweet and deleted it 1 week. He's like, well, at least I got my cardio in or something, because he was running and not getting targets. And, we've seen receivers do that. Hollywood Brown did something like that, then they delete it. Like, guys, we know you're upset. Just don't tweet it. Like, but they're young, and people think they can put everything on social media. But yeah, Judy's got to just work on the drops, man. Because the guy can get open. He's a top route runner. So against the Raiders, I think you could use him. Aguilar. Again, this is a tough game because I could see it being a shootout or one of those ugly games where you just don't see production. But the total's 51. So look, Drew Lock's the quarterback, so you don't really feel confident. Melvin Gordon looked like he was in a good spot last week and didn't have any receptions, didn't score a touchdown, but he's getting all the goal line carries. Lindsey's out. And Raiders, Darren Waller, obviously. Aguilar is okay, too.
Chargers and Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs are the one team that's really going to just unload the bench. Chad Henne at quarterback, so that pretty much wipes them out for fantasy consideration. I think Justin Herbert, though, is going to want to finish his rookie season off in style. It has been fantastic rookie year. Wasn't so great last week. They didn't put up a lot of points. But I think against a low-motivated Chiefs team, I think that Herbert should have a pretty good game.
Yeah, I mean, last week was a little bit of a disappointment. Did rush for like 26 yards, but he's had a good year. And my guess is Keenan Allen probably doesn't play. We'll see if Mike Williams plays. But you could look at Johnson and Guyton and even Parham at tight end if Hunter Henry's out. Haven't heard any update on Hunter Henry after he was on the COVID-19 list. I don't think he tested positive, right? I think he was a close contact.
I thought he was a positive, but I'm not.
Was he? Okay,
I believe so.
I can't remember.
I believe
they don't always reveal all of them, so.
I don't believe he'll be able to be active, but obviously watch your news as we get closer to kickoff there. Packers and Bears, we touched on this one a little bit. Aaron Rodgers, 50 touchdowns, MVP. He's got a lot of personal things. And, yeah, I think he clearly came out this season after, drafting the quarterback early, not drafting a wide receiver at all. People kind of starting to write him off a little bit, and he came out and tried to give everybody a big, and he is.
You buy that narrative?
You don't think at all, no?
No, I don't. Like, really? Like, you're a professional Hall of Fame quarterback. So what happened the last 2 years? You weren't motivated? Because I've talked about this. I was not high on Aaron Rodgers this year, like most people. And if you were, show me where you drafted him as a top 12 quarterback, because no one did. And no one wanted him as a backup quarterback. But the Packers did nothing to improve this team from last year. How does he go from 28 touchdown passes to this MVP season? Just motivation? Like, I don't buy that. And if that's the case, I think that's embarrassing for him.
Well, I was arguing with somebody in the Fantasy Alarm chat room, not really arguing, but we're having this discussion. Take a look at the schedule. It's been a cakewalk for him all season long.
I went over this with Howard Bender on Andy Up Podcast. Today's, you could check it out, Spotify, iTunes. I'm like, the Packers haven't had an impressive win this year. They beat the Saints early in the year, 37-30. And look, you're supposed to beat who you beat. And I said the same thing about the Packers last year. I'm going into the playoffs, I'm like, this team is not going to do anything. And they kept winning and winning. And then they finally got embarrassed by San Francisco. Look, you give them credit for what they've done. But yeah, they haven't really there's not a lot of good teams though in the NFL.
No, right? But they played like the worst defense. They played Jacksonville. They played Tennessee. The Vikings and Lions are embarrassing their division. They played garbage defenses all year long. So I think that is a bigger factor than his motivation. But I think he did come in with a little chip.
I mean, it's natural, but like I can't use that as. And again, why weren't people using that and drafting him aggressively? Because they weren't. I mean,
I never saw this coming.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
I did
hindsight.
not.
I'm looking back.
I mean, look, you have to look. You go, all right, look at what he's done the last 2 years. They added no wide receivers. They added Devin Funchess, which we knew wouldn't work anyway, and he sat out because of COVID.
Right.
And they did nothing. They drafted a quarterback and a running back when they already had two good ones. So they did nothing to upgrade the offense. And Rodgers comes out and has this historic year. So, I mean, I don't know if he was battling injuries the last 2 years. That's one I look at and go, okay, I was wrong, but why was I wrong? And I still don't know why. I can't just use motivation. Oh, well, he was motivated. Really? I mean, I don't know.
I think the schedule is a much bigger factor than anything else.
Was the schedule easy last year too? I mean,
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know. It's just weird. I mean, they did. The one thing that you could have used was they ran the football a lot last year, and we all expected Aaron Jones touchdown regression, which has happened. So they have thrown a lot inside the 5. I mean, he's force-fed Devontae Adams. And yes, Devontae Adams missed only 4 games last year. I think he was hurt when he came back because he finished the year really strong. Yeah. But, yeah, this Aaron Rodgers thing is just look, you want to use motivation as a part of it? Sure. But it cannot be the only reason why. And if it is, it's embarrassing then that he wasn't motivated the last 2 years.
Good point. Good point. Let's move on. Saints and Panthers. Not a lot going on here. I mean, Saints are pretty much down to Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook, who neither one of us are really big on. So it's Alvin Kamara against a terrible Panthers run defense. It's got to be the star of this game. And not much on the Panthers side. Mike Davis is out, so we're down to just the, who is it crew running the ball for them. This is not going to be a very fun fantasy game.
Yeah, Rodney Smith, Trenton Cannon. I think you're going to see quite a bit of Curtis Samuel in the backfield. So I think Curtis Samuel is a pretty good play because, he could get 6, 7, 8 carries plus be involved in the passing game.
He had 7 carries last week, so I think he might even have more this week.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, the Panthers receivers are okay. I think Robbie Anderson's back in practice, DJ Moore. One thing about the Panthers, they haven't quit. They played pretty hard. 2 weeks ago, they shut down the Packers in the second half. They were getting embarrassed in the first half. They shut them down in the second half. Packers did nothing. So I think Matt Rule's created a good culture there.
Definitely.
The Saints obviously still have a shot at the 1 seed, but it's a long shot. So, Kamara, Emmanuel Sanders is okay, and probably not much else.
Last one, Sunday night. It's the football team and the Eagles. Philly wins. And whoever wins the Dallas Cowboys-Giants game goes to the playoffs. If Washington wins, they go. We saw Alex Smith at least limited at practice today. I believe he's going to start. I think they're trying to take it easy with him as much as they can so he can start so we don't see Taylor Heineke, which would torpedo their playoff chances. So I expect Smith to play. I expect Gibson to play. I do not expect McLaurin to play. And the story to me is Logan Thomas's just volume lately has just exploded in the past month. So I think he is definitely one of the player to look for in this one.
Yeah, no question. He's got to be a top 5 tight end this week. It sounded like Alex Smith, they wanted him or expected him to play last week, and I guess it was a late setback. So they obviously kind of need him, which kind of speaks volumes, too, about this team. Gibson didn't practice today. I'm guessing they're just trying to limit him because he looked good last week, man. 10 carries, 61 yards, but they fell behind, and it sucked that they had to abandon him. And, if Smith's in there, McKissick, man, I mean, the guy just keeps producing. So it's McKissick, Gibson, and Logan Thomas. And then on the Philly side, you go back to Jalen Hurts. He's got that upside with the rushing. I know Washington's defense is pretty good. Could use Miles Sanders. And we'll see if Dallas Goedert goes, dealing with a couple of injuries now.
Do you like Ertz if Goddard doesn't go?
Yeah, I a little bit. I mean, the guy just kind of reminds me of like Jason Witten late in his career. He catches the ball and that's it. Like there's nothing after the catch, so he needs the volume. So yeah, he'll move up, but I don't say I love him.
Well, that wraps us up for Week 17 and wraps up 2020. Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure all year long doing these streams with you when I've had the opportunity. And of course, don't forget to ring in the new year with Fantasy Alarm. We have everything right now, 40% off any guide, any package. So that means baseball, hockey, basketball, where you guys are just kicking ass there. We have esports now, so get in now, 40% off. Use code 2021 to get in the action. Put 2020 behind you. Make 2021 better with the family. We're going to make you winners. You know it. We know it. Let's do it all together. So enjoy week 17. Happy New Year to everyone. Enjoy your celebrations safely, of course. And we will be back in January. Continue with the Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk for Adam Ronis. Oh, who you can follow on Twitter at Adam Ronis. You can follow me at Fighting Chance. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you next week.